we're going to start with 3 pretty simple questions. The 3 of you have been commentating. There's been 45 games so far. Pretty amazing tournament. What has been, we'll start with you, Natalie, what has been your highlight of the tournament so far?
Well, my first game was at Wankhede Stadium, and it was England versus South Africa. And I enjoyed that day immensely.
Okay, moving on. We're moving on.
She can sledge.
South Africa, of course, gave England a thumping. But really the standout moment, and this is a little bit boring, has to be Glenn Maxwell and the double 100. And the reason it's my standout moment, obviously it was superhuman, it was a bit ridiculous in so many ways that he got Australia home in all the circumstances, when you take everything into context. But so much has been said about this format. Does it have a future? It reaches a time when you know there's a foregone conclusion, and there was. It was 91 for 7. Everyone's thinking, this is going nowhere. This is where ODIs have this moment where we know who's going to win. There's no point carrying on. And he obviously proved there is a point sometimes, even though it's a 3% chance at the time. And we were royally entertained that day. So I think that's got to be my favorite moment.
Michael?
Well, one has to approach everything with due humility as an Englishman at this point. There are not many of us left here. I think myself, Nasser, Richard Illingworth is umpiring tomorrow's game, so he's a rare English representative left in this competition. I too was at that game. It was a brilliant performance by Glenn Maxwell, but I'm going to choose a team actually. I think Afghanistan have been absolutely brilliant in this tournament. I think I was there in Chennai when they chased the total against Pakistan with unbelievable ease and kind of calmness, which is not necessarily the description or adjective you mostly associate with Afghanistan cricket if you watch them chasing in a T20 when it's all mayhem. But I think in this tournament they've stepped up another level. They've won, is it 4 games or 3? 4 games. Should have won 5, obviously, with the Australia game. And they've definitely improved a notch or 2, and it's been fantastic to see. And they're coached by an Englishman. So Jonathan Trott has been England's man of the tournament in this. So I'm going to go for Afghanistan. They've been fantastic.
Natalie is looking at you and saying, I thought Trott played South Africa under 19. You know, I feel a bit like all the 20-mark questions are gone there. Everyone's given the answers. Those two were dramatic. It'll be very difficult to look beyond Glenn Maxwell because from 90 for 7 chasing 290, you don't win. And the greatest partner innings in the history of the game, 12 of 68 balls at the other end, and there's still one with time left. What I enjoyed was the ability of 50 overs cricket to surprise. So we were all under the impression, and we've talked about it, that 50 overs cricket is just going to become a helter-skelter, long-form T20 game. And look how it surprised us. It allowed batters 20, 25 minutes to play themselves in. Michael talked about Afghanistan. The big change was Afghanistan had test match batters at 3 and 4 who were controlling the game and who were mounting those run chases. It's allowed the Virat Kohlis of the world to play themselves in rather than go and slog from the first ball. It's allowed the bowlers who bowl beautiful seam-up line and length deliveries to take wickets rather than go scramble seam, cross seam, slow loopy bouncer in the very first over. So I think it surprised us a little bit, the 50 overs game. And I think that's one of the things I enjoyed. It's difficult to look beyond Afghanistan and Glenn Maxwell, but I just thought I'd have a third point of view.
It's a good point. I think it's very fashionable to knock the 50-over game. Everybody recognises that T20 is a runaway train. You know, it's got unbelievable momentum behind it, but it's become quite fashionable to have a crack at 50-over cricket and think that it's almost a dying format. I'm hoping what this tournament has shown is that it's got a bit of life left in it. I think it's a good game because it gives the best players a full opportunity to really show off the fullest range of their talents and skill, which you don't always get in a game that lasts 3 hours. You know, if Glenn Maxwell comes in a T20 game at number 5, he may have a maximum of 20 balls to show off what he's got. So the scope that 50-over cricket provides, I think, has been a worthwhile reminder over the last 7 weeks.
It's also been fashionable to knock the English team as well, isn't it? But that's probably not for this conversation.
2 accents out of 4, you're still in the majority.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you all who you think is the player of the tournament, but you all pretty much said who you think is who's your second player of the tournament if it's not Glenn Maxwell?
Well, I mean, I would be a bit biased saying this, but I think Quinton de Kock's got to stand out. It has been a batters World Cup, so yes, maybe things have been in his favour in some ways, but to score 4 centuries as an opener and the way he's batted has given South Africa obviously so much. Coming into this tournament in World Cups, he was averaging 30. So he hadn't had the best of histories in Cricket World Cups. So yes, he's announced his retirement from one-day internationals, but he's obviously shown his value within the format. Definitely, though, a special mention to Dilshan Madushankar, left-arm seamer from Sri Lanka. The team was falling apart, so many injuries, and to still pick up 21 wickets is pretty special for me.
So you like cricket batters, not cricket matters?
Yeah, I suppose you can say that.
I've loved watching Rachin Ravindra play, actually, the young New Zealander. And it's curious, really. I suppose we could all think of moments in our lives where suddenly your life goes on a completely different trajectory, and it can be a chance moment. And I don't think Rachin Ravindra, he wouldn't have been in this tournament, probably, if Michael Bracewell had been fit. He certainly wouldn't have played in the opening game at Ahmedabad had Kane Williamson been fit. And suddenly he gets an opportunity because Will Young is out first ball in that game, and he took it. He got a brilliant 100 against England. He's added 2 more since. He's looked an absolute star in the making. He's only 23, so he's been a young player who has really kind of grasped his opportunity, and his life is going to look a lot different over the next couple of years. There'll be a few IPL franchises opening their wallets, I should think, as we speak.
There's a dummy account that's opened already in his name which says RCB. Think of me, RCB, here I'm coming. It didn't say KKR, by the way. I'm sure KKR is putting together a war chest as well.
Harsha, who's your player of or second player of the match if it's not Glenn Maxwell?
I think you're normally asked to name 3. It's very difficult to look beyond Quinton de Kock and Rachin Ravindra as your players of the tournament. My third would be, in no particular order, I actually like what Rohit Sharma's done, because I think he's led the side very well, very different from Virat Kohli, without a comparison being made and before Twitter starts to make that a story. X, not Twitter. But I think he's put his arm around, he's supported players, he's supported Shreyas Iyer, he's supported Mohammad Siraj. He said this is how we want to play as a team, and he's gone and done it himself up front, and he scored 500 runs in that style. And I think he's led the team really well. So the fact that he's doing 2 things in there definitely makes him a contender. As I said, it's difficult to look beyond the fairy tale story of Rachin Ravindra. It's absolutely incredible. 2019 World Cup final, New Zealand are playing. He's sitting in a pub in Bangalore and dreaming, maybe. So,
fantastic. Again, so the final question from me before we throw it to the floor, it's the big question, the big drum roll question.
And you're going to go to Natalie first again.
I'm going to ask who's going to win the World Cup, but we're going to start with the chap in the middle, the neutral.
This is a killer question in this audience if I don't go for the obvious answer. Well, India have looked by far the best team, no question about that. They've played fantastic cricket, they're obviously unbeaten. They've got the best bowling attack, and my view is that although the standout moments in a tournament are often made by batters, and Maxwell in this example, the team that wins it is often powered by the best bowling attack, and I think India have got the best bowling attack. However, I think if you rewind back to your school days or university days and think what you felt like on the eve of a big exam, all your preparation's been perfect, all your revision's been perfect, you've got 9 A stars in your mocks, there's that nagging fear that you could just have a bad day. And I suspect that's what millions of Indian supporters will be waking up feeling like tomorrow morning, that everything's gone perfectly, but there's just a nagging fear that it might go wrong on the big day. So that's I think the danger for India, and Harsha's right, Rohit has played super aggressively at the top of the order. Will he still do that if elimination is on the line? And the only other potential kind of banana skin that I see for India is if they have an injury with their bowlers because of the lack of all-rounder there now. 5 bowlers, which is presumably why all the others were having a bowl the other day in that game. So a couple of banana skins there, but they're unquestionably, so far, on the evidence so far, they're unquestionably been the best team in the tournament. And recent 50-over World Cups have suggested a very strong correlation between form running into the competition. The number 1 ranked side is usually a strong bet for success. And then, you know, form in the group stage usually carries through. There's less of an element of chance in 50-over cricket than 20-over cricket. So I think India are favourites.
Okay, we're going to go rock, paper, scissors on who gets to answer.
The reason we are laughing is that Natalie thought I'm going to pinch her line. Was your question who is going to win it, or who do you think is going to win it?
Who's going to win? Who do you?
The answer to who is going to win it is I have absolutely no clue.
Who do you think is going to win?
You know, in India, we believe very strongly in the power of the jinx. So I'm going to say the top 3 contenders are Australia, South Africa, and New Zealand. But I think this is India's best opportunity. Look, in every World Cup, India seemed to go into the playoffs as either the number 1 or number 2 teams. Even in 2019, India went in as the number 1 team. New Zealand scraped in, having lost to everybody else who had qualified. And then the game went into the second day. This time again, New Zealand have qualified without having beaten any of the other 3. But it's not a movie. So, yeah. In a 50-over game, the form would favor India. But on the big day, as Athos' friend Nasser keeps saying every time, is it the same plank of wood that you walk on, the 20-by-3 plank of wood when it's on the floor? And then when you put it up between 2 tall buildings, you're still walking like it's another plank of wood? So I'd love to see the temperament, but I think this is a cooler, more relaxed Indian team. Go on, Nat.
Drum roll.
Come up with your prepared answer. Come on.
Well, I'm going to say that. I agree, form team is India. There's no doubt. And having done a few of India's games, you're always impressed by India's batting, but the bowling has stood out for me. And it's been one of the reasons they are where they are. And that is whether they bowl in the first innings or second innings. It hasn't actually mattered as much as you may have thought. It's hard to look past India. But I'm going to preface this with, every one of my predictions for this tournament has been wrong. Just by the way, I've not got one right this entire tournament.
So you think South Africa is going to win it?
No, that's not what I'm going to say. Because that's also a scary prospect in itself. I think we're going to have a different winner this year. And whether that's New Zealand or South Africa, obviously we'll find out on the day, but I think we're going to have a different winner this year. I think New Zealand has a real chance only because they seem to know how to win the knockout matches. We spoke about the fact that, yes, they didn't beat the top 3 in the previous ones, didn't beat this time, but they know how to win the semi-finals, and they've shown that. They've made so many finals of late. I think they've got a real chance of still making it through, even though probably my head is going to say, yes, it's India. I think for South Africa, it's going to rain on Thursday and Friday. They're going to make it into the finals on Sunday and maybe surprise everybody. Honestly, I think there's going to be a different winner, but on form, you're going India, for sure.
Michael talked about the little issue that could come up if one of the bowlers goes away, and then Virat Kohli's got to bowl his concoction. But there's one other factor where India has not been tested. If New Zealand cannot lose wickets in the power play, bat first, don't lose wickets in the power play, put up 320 and get India to bat under the lights in Mumbai, where 17 wickets have fallen in the first 10 overs. That'll be the challenge, because as everyone in this room who's been hurt before, in the knockouts, the first 3 wickets, the pain hasn't yet gone. But if there's a storybook finish waiting to be written, like Rachin Ravindra's, will Temba Bavuma be a Sia Kolisi?
And we can't have South Africa win all the World Cups for sports that England has actually invented in one year.
They'll win it by 1 point, 1 run.
We're just hoping that there isn't a South African umpire in the final, because there's always a South African umpire in the final, because South Africa never makes the final. So that'll be a good result for us.
A lot of the theme that's come through today is about cricket as a global sport, being in the Olympics and what have you. And we'll start with you, Natalie, what do you think cricket needs to do to compete with the global sports out there, football, basketball, soccer, basketball, what have you. What does cricket need to do?
I think it's interesting that you asked the question, because what do they need to do? Do they not compete? Does it not compete already? And the reason I say that is because you look at the audiences that cricket get. We've spoken so much about Virat Kohli and his social media influence, which is far greater than what you see from any basketballer, any footballer. I think that reach is already there, and it's easy to discount the reach that cricket actually has. And I think maybe that's just because American sport do it a little bit differently, in that they are so good at the entertainment side of it and promoting the sport. And maybe that's something cricket could possibly learn, is promoting the entertainment side of it in a way that is still authentic to whichever country it may be promoted in, and still authentic to the game itself. But I think cricket already competes with it when you look at the numbers that watch it, the numbers that follow it as well, and the earning potential as well from it.
Harsha, I'm going to throw that straight back at you, because I know we talked about this backstage a little bit.
Is cricket going to the Olympics to take cricket around the world? Or is cricket going to the Olympics to say, let's take Anurag, take him out of the ICC, put him in the IOC and get a better television rights deal? So if the objective is to take cricket to different parts of the world, I think we've got to start explaining the game, because our game is incredibly complicated. If I had never seen a game of football, I could follow the game of football. So to that extent, yes, if it's going to encourage a lot of other teams to play. But it's already a global sport, don't forget. There are days when you look up on the Crickbus site and there's Hungary playing Austria. So it's already a global sport, but I don't see any harm in cricket going to the Olympics. Because, especially in our part of the world, cricket lives in a tower high above the rest of the ground, and then you go and live in an Olympic village. And the people who've gone and lived in Olympic villages just talk about how beautiful it is to rub shoulders. So at the Asian Games, there's Neeraj Chopra coming along to watch the women play cricket, for example. So I think from that point of view, as something that brings people together, yes, but I can't help thinking that it might boost the bottom line.
Michael, how are we getting the Germans to play?
Well, cricket has a great following. It's a great sport. I'm not... this is probably not the answer I'm supposed to give, by the way. I'm not sure it's ever going to become as big as football, just for the simple reasons of time, space, and cost, and a little bit of complexity. Football's a very simple game, requires a ball. Cricket just has slightly higher barriers to entry, and just makes it a different game, a more challenging game. But which is not to say it can't grow and be unbelievably popular, because it is right now and will only get bigger and better, I'm sure. But there are one or two challenges that just make it perhaps, a more problematic game to take up. I hope that kind of is all right, makes sense. But, football's a different thing, I think.
Cricket needs a surface. It's a surface that determines everything. How do you get good enough surfaces? Do you then play it on artificial surfaces? Do you ensure, if the Olympics are in Latin America, do you carry your pitches across? Because so much depends on the pitches. But typically when something new happens, we always look at why it cannot happen. So maybe we'll just take it as it comes.
I'm sure producing events, the quality of the World Cup, just the production as a viewer, has been amazing. I mean, surely, like you say, making it more entertaining, that kind of production quality must be an answer as well. We are out of time. Now, we could carry on this conversation forever, but two of my esteemed guests actually do have to get to tomorrow's semi-final on the other side of the country, and so they do have to get to the airport. So if I can say thank you to Natalie, to Michael, and to Harsh, thank you so much for joining us at Cricket Matters today. Thank you.